I should probably wait to make this video. I gotta go to the post office, but actually now that I think about it, I can go to the post office next to my house instead of this one that's here. You don't need to know that though. Or maybe you do. It doesn't matter because I'm probably not gonna post these. I'm gonna start keeping these as, instead of writing down the videos I'm gonna make these for the future me. Then the future me can watch these and then make a full video on it. But I was just listening to a song called Fake Woke by Tom McDonald. And in it he has a line that says, like, order food and call the cops and see which one reaches you first. And it got me thinking, in an actual free society where we could decentralize protection, you know, they claim that the police are protection, but the police are not protection. The police are the state. The government is the governance. They're the words on the papers that cast the magic spells into the brains. But the fireballs that those wizards cast are shot from the firearms of the state, which is the police officers. They're the ones that enforce all this stuff. So they're enforcing arbitrary rules on people, and they're enforcing them a lot of times without even a victim. They're going around and they call them tax pirates. They're going around looking for trouble that no one's bothering. Like I've never called armed people on a person that was speeding on the highway, but armed people will stop people on the highway that aren't bothering anybody. Even if you're all by yourself in the middle of nowhere on a long straight highway with no one to hurt but yourself, the police can pull you over and give you a ticket for speeding. And they're not testing your ability. So they're claiming it's a safety hazard because they think the average individual can't go at that speed, but they have no idea as you as an individual what speed you're capable of traveling at. I should do another video about decentralized roads and insurance and speed limits and drunk driving and all that stuff based on insurance companies. But back to this Tom McDonald line. One, and maybe I'll link it below when I make a video. There was a time, I think it was when Mitt Romney was running for president against Barack Obama. But it may be because Mitt Romney's father worked in Detroit with GM and the car companies that I'm thinking that. But there was a time where Detroit was going bankrupt, and a private security company that's been in Detroit for quite some time that charges like $15 to escort you to work. You can get armed security that escorts you to work, drops you off, does a walk around the building, and brings you inside. And they had like a zero death rate or whatever, zero casualties. They never lost or hurt anybody based on the techniques that they use. The guy that was in those videos, and you can go watch them, it's Reason TV. I think it's called Anarchy in Detroit. It was like a 3-part series, turned into a 6-part series, but one of them is the police force. And the guy that does the self-defense videos that everybody makes fun of, he, I think, is the guy from Detroit in their videos as well. So I will say I didn't go to Detroit at the time to see this. The only evidence is that Reason TV video, so, and take that for what it is. Anywho, they had private security. It was pretty cheap. So imagine the land is privatized and you want to report a crime, a mishap, or a security thing, and maybe you can't afford full-time security, but there's an app similar to Uber or whatever where you can pick up the app, get a registered security system in the area, send them an emergency message, and pay a fee to those individuals to come help you. So, say you have a firearm on you, for example, but somebody's outside, so you want cavalry to come because you see multiple people. Pick up your phone, call private security, let them know some information. Maybe you shoot them a picture of what you look like, or confirm it, or you maybe you're pre-registered. Maybe they can track your phone, your house, your location, whatever it be. You can cross-reference it with them prior. They send somebody out, and now you have security that comes to your house. And that security company works with all the private landowners to get egresses to move across multiple roads and stuff, and they've worked out deals and arrangements prior with individuals. So there's no middleman. Currently, government politicians are the middle people, and in this situation, all the land is privately owned by individuals. So you would have people that, like Elon maybe, or the owners of Walmart, or whoever it may be, who knows. It could be communes, individual groups, collectives, still, that own these swaths of land and have financial invested interest in them. They would work together to allow people to cross over their land. You wouldn't need this third-party enforcement guns. Excuse me. It's 6 p.m. here, Eastern Standard Time. I get up at 4 a.m. So, a little bit tired, a little dehydrated. I had a workout, I had a rush. I got some new tires on my car today. Anyways, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. So you could have like like a ring phone type security system where maybe you have a main thing that gives you alerts and stuff, but instead of them going to the police, they could send somebody to your house, or you could have an app on your phone, and then you could order these services, and they would have an invested interest in coming to get you. You could see how far away they were. They could be tracked on the app. Obviously, there'd be some issues there because hackers then could also track them on the app. So if there was some really big criminals, they could see. But the bigger you are, the more you would have to pay for security. So then the security systems would deal with hackers. And the smaller a person you are, the less you need to pay for this type of security. They're probably less apt to get hacked because you're such a small target to work on this stuff. So everything would be relative based on the individual. And this is a service that, maybe lords of the land could offer to people that live there. So if you lived in a high rise, maybe everybody in the high rise got access to this app. If you lived in a community, with the homeowners association, maybe everybody got access to another app, or they picked a particular service, and then that service gave you a code which was free because it was clicked in, and the payments were split between the individuals in the neighborhood. And this would incentivize people in the neighborhood to monitor crime properly. And then it wouldn't be about enforcing arbitrary rules per se. It would be about people feeling threatened when there's a victim in the crime calling for aid, basically getting a third party to take care of the self-defense for them. So if they're not able to self-defend themselves, this is a way for those individuals to outsource their self-defense. That's really what goes on now. That's one of the big battles. This is why when people hear libertarianism and they hear firearms and stuff, people that are really bubbled and really really inside the bubble, that have never met, heard, or dealt with criminals are like, oh, well, they just banned guns, so then no one will have guns. And they think that includes the criminals. As if, criminals can't then just use knives or whatever. So they're breaking the law already. So they're going to murder somebody, so of course they will get an illegal firearm. But then, even if you make the firearms legal, they're concerned that they can't handle themselves. So they're like, well, if I'm supposed to protect myself and I'm not good at it, then I'm going to die. So only mean big people that know how to use guns can survive. This is their mindset. So the idea would be then you can just outsource them, and it can be voluntary. So you can still have a police force is like, every time I hear police officer, I think of that KRS-One song. A lot of viewers probably don't know who a KRS-One is, or are too young for it, or they're old and they don't like rap music. But this is how you used to get your news from the streets. But KRS-One used to talk about overseers. So the slave plantation owners would have overseers on a horse, and they would look over and they would catch and whip anybody that tried to get away. And it's like overseer, officer. So if you say overseer fast enough, it turns into the word officer. And they police the area. Police officer, police overseer. Anyways, instead of that model, you would have we have a problem, we need somebody to solve it. If I can't solve it, my neighbor and I can't solve it, we need access to certain situations where you need immediate problem solvers with an immediate problem. So think about it as if you're at your house and a pipe bursts. You don't call the government and say, hey, I got a pipe burst. Can you please send a plumber over? Or if your roof starts leaking, you don't call the government and say, hey, can you please send a roofer over? So when you're threatened, why do you call the government and say, can you please bring security over? When you could call a security company that was privatized, just like a plumber, that make emergency stops and come over, or emergency roofers or whatever, and say, hey, I got an emergency, could you please come over and protect me? Now, you could still have a situation if somebody had a private driveway or highway and they had to give you an egress to travel on that highway, where they talk to the insurance company, and the insurance company can kind of give them an idea and monitor how well of a driver you are and how much you should speed, where instead of it being like a fine, it would be like a fee. So if you were paying a toll to use their road instead of the road being paid for taxes, if you were doing something like speeding, maybe if you go between the 45 and 55 miles an hour, you pay a nickel a mile. And if you are going 55 to 65, you pay 7 cents a mile. And then if you're going, 65 to 85 or whatever, it's something crazy like $1 a mile. And then you say, well, then rich people could speed. And it's like, yes, but if there's an accident and people die, the rich people have more at risk, and they can, not that you can, there's enough money to save a life, but if there's damages, the rich person will be held liable. They're probably going to be paying more in insurance and in liabilities and stuff. So you can offset some of this stuff, but it could also be based on your driving. Like some people might be able to drive 100 miles an hour and never get in an accident, and other people at 45 are getting in accidents. And you'd be able to personalize and individualize the insurance, the fees and stuff that people had to pay based on their abilities. And this is going to sound crazy to some people, but if you had a private entity, not a centralized entity, but a privatized entity that could monitor your existence while you drive, and you voluntarily gave them permission. So you're being tracked either by your phone, by a car, LoJack, whatever it was. Maybe you would get a discount for having it tracked. Maybe you'd have a discount for blowing into the thing, and if you were sober, you'd pay one fee. And some people, when they were drunk, if they lived in the middle of nowhere, could still get insured. And if you're a bad driver when you're drunk, then you would get a higher rates, or the car wouldn't turn on. But some people can have 2-3 beers, and they're going to be in better capacity than somebody to drive than somebody that has 0 beers. And currently, it's a one-size-fits-all thing. And yes, you drinking. So objectively, drinking does impair your driving. But it depends where your baseline is. So if drinking impairs your driving by, let's say, -10 for every beer that you have, and you're a 100-point driver and you drink 3 beers, so it brings you down to 70, and somebody else's baseline is 50, well, they're a worse driver than you sober than you are with 3 beers in you. And there can be a way to quantify and manage that financially, and then keep records of it, and then chart it within insurance systems and roadway systems. All right, so that's enough notes for me. I'm here at the post office, dropping off a letter to my accountant to pay him for the theft that the government did. They extorted money from me. And so I had to pay the government because I was afraid the mafia was going to show up and throw me in a cage. But pay the mafia and you get on with your life.